Are you having trouble editing your podcast? Are you having trouble with all of the technical aspects of editing your podcast, and it's just making you frustrated, and you just hate doing it, and you rather somebody else do it, but you know you need to do it, right? Well, today I'm going to tell you about how you can be successful at podcasting and edit your podcast without spending a week trying to do so. All right. So I'm going to give you the secrets so that you can do this very, very quickly, very, very easily. All right. So your problem that you're having is you really want to start a podcast, but you're having trouble with that editing piece, right? And editing piece is the piece that gives most people anxiety, and it makes them feel like, man, if I could just get over this, I would be fine, you know? And when it comes to editing, they're like, I don't know anything about this. I don't know how to do this. I hope it sounds right. And then you start editing and then you stop because it gets too hard, right? But that's because you don't have a system to actually put that together so that you don't have to be spending 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks editing one video or editing one podcast episode, right? So we're going to get rid of that today. We're going to get rid of all of that today. So if you can't edit your podcast, or if your podcast is going to end up sounding bad, or it's going to sound crazy and people are going to be like, what is going on, right? Then you're going to have to spend tons of money getting someone else to do it, or you're just not going to just do it at all. It's going to say, all right, then you're going to quit, right? So we don't want you to quit. We want you to keep going, because this podcast can open the doors for everything. It can open the doors for your ministry. It can open doors for your business. It will open doors, okay? I remember what they say, keys open doors, all right? Some of my, one of those guys is actually my friend. If you know, you know who that song belongs to, okay? So I used to spend time editing all the time, guys. So if you guys don't know, like me and my wife, when we first started podcasting, we got on the app, the Spotify app, and my wife had brought it home. She's like, yo, we could do this. And it wasn't Spotify at the time. At the time, it was Anchor. And so she's like, we can do this. So I was like, all right, cool. So let's jump into it. So we started doing it. And we found that we didn't have time to podcast until it was late at night. And we didn't want our kids to be in our audio all the time. So what we did was we waited till they went to sleep, and then we went into our closet, or we came over into our little space, and we just got it in, you know. And at the time, we were just doing one episode. It was like one episode is enough, and we didn't even realize, hey man, we could batch these episodes, like 2 or 3 of these episodes at a time when we have this time at night, you know, give ourselves an hour and a half, and knock out 2 or 3 episodes, and then all we had to do was just edit them. And that was the problem, the editing, right? So shooting or recording the episodes, because we weren't doing video at the time, we were just recording. And so recording the episodes wasn't really time consuming. We were tired though. You know, we were tired because, you know, you go to work, and then we went to practices and stuff like that. And then after practices, we're putting the kids to bed, and we're getting them food and doing homework and all of that stuff, brushing teeth, all that stuff, right? So all the stuff you normally have to do when your young kids have to go to bed. So we were spending time at the end of the day, tired, and some days we're just like, I don't feel like pulling, like we literally had to pull all of the stuff out. We had to pull all of the mics out. We had to put everything up, set the computer up, all of those things, right? We had to do all the things. And we got our episodes done, right? And so what we had to do after that was then we had to edit those episodes and then create promotions for that episode, and then push all of the stuff out, and then schedule and all of the things, right? All of the things that it takes to actually put a podcast out and actually promote it the right way and get people to listen, right? So we had to do all those things. And I found myself always having to go to school, because I was a teacher at the time, and edit the podcast while I was at school, or edit late at night after the kids went to bed, or, you know, spending a lot of time editing. And it wasn't until I actually started doing my podcast projects with my 6th graders then I realized that there is a system to this. And if I create this system, which I actually created, then everything will go smooth. Everything will go faster. And so I was like, okay, cool. So I came up with a little system that allows me to edit the podcast very, very quickly. And the solution to the podcast and not having enough time to edit it is creating a template. All right. So when you create a template for your podcast, you're going to start editing episodes quicker, and then you're going to be able to get more episodes out in a shorter amount of time. Like I went from editing an episode like 2 days, because like I would do some at the night, then I'd go at school and I'll cut out some more stuff, and then I'll come home and then I'll cut out some more stuff, and then put everything together, put the intro, all that stuff together, and then finally I would have a podcast episode. But as I continued to use my system and I got better, I was able to edit these podcasts simply and put it together. Now, a lot of it did have to do with me knowing exactly what I wanted to say and being okay with it being organic. Because I love the organic podcast. So if you guys listen to the Building a Purpose-Driven Podcast with Derek Harper, me, right? If you guys listen to the podcast, you'll see that it's organic and raw. And I love the organic and rawness of it, because it makes you more like a person and more relatable. And people are like, that's my guy, right? Instead of always being polished and everything sounding like NPR, all in your face, right? All of that's good. There's nothing wrong with that. I just like the realness and the rawness of the podcast, so people can relate to me as a real person, right? And that's what it's all about. So we need to start editing quicker so that we can get these podcast episodes out. So I got a 3-step framework that's going to help you do this. Now, it takes some work up front, as with everything. It takes some work up front to put it together. But after you put it together, it's going to come together easily for you, and you're going to start being able to do this. All right, so the thing we're going to do is we're going to create a template. And so how do we create a template? It's very, very simple. Guys, you're not even going to believe this. So we're going to create a template. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create an intro. All right, we're going to create a recorded intro. All right? That means we're going to intro our podcast by giving them your people the benefit and then your name of your podcast. All right? And then we're going to record that. Now, you need to record that. That can be like, I would suggest being no more than 20 seconds, because you don't want to lose people, okay? So you want to record your intro. No more than 20 seconds. Give them the benefit. Tell them what the name of the podcast is. Give them a call to action, and then we out, right? 20 seconds, we can do that, right? That also helps you when you're on YouTube, if you're throwing your videos on YouTube. So 20 seconds, that's about as long as people will give you, okay? 20 seconds might be too long, but it's probably going to get shorter here in the next, 5 years, right? As attention spans get even shorter and shorter. Like I can see commercials used to be like 2 minutes long way back in the day. And then they started to get to like a minute long. And then like the standard commercial just recently was like 30 seconds. That's like the standard commercial. And now they're like down to 15 seconds. Like we're going to get to a point where like the commercials are going to be like this. You're like, drink Coke. That's it. It's going to be like a Coke commercial, like drink Coke. Right? Very, very fast, because the attention span is going to be very, 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 very low as we continue to get more technology. So create an intro, make it short, right? Don't be long-winded, right? Like my wife tells me that I'm long-winded sometimes. So create an intro. All right, now number 2, we're going to create an outro. All right, we create an intro. Guess what? We got to create an outro. They're here, and then they're gone, right? So we don't want them to leave without us saying, thank you for listening, and then giving another call to action, okay? Thank you for listening. Give another call to action. Boom, we out, right? Because we want to get in and we want to get out, right? So we want to give them something very quickly just to remind them again, thank you for listening. the podcast name, and then a call to action. All right, some type of call to action for them. Okay, so you got an intro, and then you got the outro. Okay, then the third thing is create a mid-roll. All right, create a mid-roll. Now, what is a mid-roll? A mid-roll is like your commercial. It's sort of like a commercial. It actually is a commercial, but it may not necessarily mean that you're selling something. It could be you just stopping in the middle and say, hey, I know this podcast episode is getting really good, but man, take the time out right now to subscribe, download this so that we can move our podcast up the charts, and then we can do more for you, right? So boom, that might be your mid-roll. That's it right there, quickly, 20 seconds, right? And then that might be the thing. That's the thing that you would use to put other people on, right? So if somebody else wants, like you got a real popular podcast and somebody else was like, hey man, I want to buy that 30-second spot that you put in the middle of your podcast. All right, cool. It'll be X amount of dollars. All right, cool. They do that. Now you put their stuff in the middle, and now you've monetized your podcast. And that's just a quick little tip for you, for those people who are looking for monetization. That's one of the ways that you can monetize your podcast, okay? Just by selling ad spots on your podcast, right? That mid-roll is precious real estate in your podcast, okay? The very, very beginning of your podcast is precious real estate. You would probably want to charge more for the beginning of the episode, like when you get a sponsor. Like, comes on, as soon as the podcast comes on. This podcast today is sponsored by Nike. Ooh, one day, this podcast will be sponsored by Nike. Maybe one day. All right, so create a mid-roll. That's your commercial in the middle of it. That's the thing. That's the time for you to say, hey, I know let's interrupt this podcast while you're listening and engaged. Here's something else I need you to do. All right, or I want you to do. Okay, so mid-roll. So that's what you do. You got an intro. You created an intro. You record it and export it out. Okay, you record it and create a audio file for it. You got an outro. You record it, create an audio file for it. You got a mid-roll. You record it, create a audio file for it. Then you create a new workstation or workspace, and you're gonna drop in the intro, you're going to drop in the outro, you're going to drop in the mid-roll, and you're going to save that as your show template. Now, what you do after that is you bring in your podcast episodes, okay? You bring in your podcast episodes. You take your podcast episode, drop it in between that, slice it, smooth it out, put everything together, and boom, you're done. Done. Get her done, all the way done, all right? Cool. Now you do that on repeat over and over and over again, and then now you have a system to create your podcast, and you can do 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, as long as you can record and speak 3, 4, 5, 6 of these things without having to do that. All right. So I showed my client Marcel how to do this, and without any experience, she didn't even have experience using a computer. Without any experience, guys, she was able to create 2 or more episodes in less than 2 hours a week. Okay. Once I showed her this, she was able to do that, and she's like, she is ready to launch. She's doing her thing. But that's what I have for you guys. So if you guys follow this, I promise you that you will be able to create your episodes much faster. You don't have to spend all day editing, and you can do this not only on a digital audio workstation, which is a DAW like GarageBand or Audacity or Adobe Audition. You can do this inside of apps on your phone, okay? So listen, if you want me to show you how I did this process and my exact steps so you can be able to implement this into your podcast, listen, then do me a favor. Go ahead and comment, learn under this video, right? And if you're listening to this, the audio podcast, go down to the description and click the link, okay? But if you're watching this video on YouTube, if you're watching it on Facebook, wherever you're watching it, go ahead and comment learn under, and I'll send you the link. There'll also be a link in the description if you're on YouTube. All right, so cool. So with that being said, man, remember that everything you do today affects your future. So remember, tomorrow, I'm Derek Harper, and I will talk to you in the next video.